Okay, let's see. Just waiting for some people to show up. Nobody's here yet. Making sure the sound's working and everything. Refresh my manager for stream. Really don't want to start talking too much till I actually have people here that are gonna, listen, comment, and actually impart something to the discussion. Yeah, I know this is my normal kind of topic, and I apologize for bringing people down if this does that, but this is enough. Cam view. I'm speaking to gamers. I expect gamers to be a little bit more accepting than I do the regular world, and a little bit tired of all the hate speech. Now somebody's here. That's all I need, just one person. Welcome to, this is not exactly an RPG college. This is a rant. Maybe even not a rant, but it's an important show. I do run the RPG college, so I talk about a lot of gaming, the gamer culture, Dungeons and Dragons, tabletop role-playing games, and the people I'm talking to are usually in that environment. And probably something that comes up, and people try to avoid talking about it all the time, is hate speech, gatekeeping, keeping people out, excluding people, uh, those taboo topics of racism and sexism and the um, negativity towards certain people of certain sexual orientations. And I'm getting a little bit tired of seeing such an overabundance of hate in the community. Now, I understand people coming together and wanting to do peaceful protests. Peaceful is the key word here. Peaceful protests for something they believe in. It's one of the most powerful things we have in our society is the ability to peacefully protest. But there's people out there rioting and using this as an excuse. They're taking two wrongs and trying to make a right, and it's never going to work. That's one equation that does not work. Um, you can't take, because you're upset at somebody else's social injustice out there, you can't use that as an excuse to break into somebody's business and destroy their property or steal from somebody or hurt somebody. I'm sorry I get very emotional on something like this. It's just starting to drive me nuts. We've already dealt with a lot of bad this year with the COVID-19 epidemic. Uh, whether you believe it's a hoax or not, whether you believe that it, we reacted right to it or not, it's still, you know, the fact that people's lives are what matter here, not some small comforts that you might have. You as an individual have your own concerns, and that's absolutely your concern, but we have to realize that we do live in a world with other people out there, like our fellow gamers. I'm not any kind of president or prime minister or in charge of anything in the gaming world, but I do see myself, and we all should see ourselves as ambassadors to from our culture to other members of our culture and to people outside of our culture. We need to teach people acceptance. Gamers come from a group of people, nerds, period, come from a group of people that have often hidden in the basements of our lives. We did our thing, but not around a whole lot of other people, just a small group of friends, and it was not something that everybody accepted. I mean, other activities like sports and choir and things like that were more accepted. Although even the choir people were one of our type of our community, the nerds. There were a lot of us that were partially accepted, but not fully. We were teased, we were bullied, we were ostracized for things that we do, and this is just not how we're supposed to approach life. Um, People in our uh, in the world now, we're supposed to be a advanced, actual, civilized culture who deal with people as people. Um, I don't look at people and see black, white, red, yellow. I see my friends, my acquaintances, and people I don't know yet, and that's about it. Um, I jokingly say sometimes that I'm not prejudiced. I hate everybody equally, but it's really not true. I get along with most people out there, and this is an emotional subject for me. I just think that I'm tired of all the hate. D&D, gaming, our various pastimes, whether we like to dress up as a furry or go dance Kira Kira or practice LARPing or play Dungeons and Dragons, whatever. These are supposed to be our stress reliefs. These are supposed to be the things that take us away from these parts of our life. And the negativity out there is really starting to sap the energy out of everything. I understand that we're not able to get to do a lot of our um, pastimes right now because of the situations we're in. We're not going to the game stores and playing Dungeons and Dragons right now, live, face to face with our friends, but we are trying to do as much as we can. Members of our community are working tirelessly to still facilitate bringing this kind of thing to you. Um, in early May, the first, second, and third, we would have been at VisionCon here in town, probably one of the biggest events in town, and in the Springfield area, Springfield Branson area, is VisionCon, and we didn't have it because of COVID, but instead we brought you a virtual con, and people came together and shared their love of their hobbies, and that's what this is supposed to be about. That's what our life as gamers and as nerds is supposed to be about. We're not supposed to be out there just causing all kinds of social distress. We're not supposed to be looting and burning and hurting people. And we're not supposed to be talking down to people. Somebody sent me something today, and I thought it was very important, and I'm going to bring it up. Marissa Pence with VisionCon, among other things, sent me a link to something that was called, let's see, let me get out my notifications here. Uh, was called, it was from NOW, which is the National Organization for Women, but it was talking about getting rid of a specific word in our culture that is another one of those words that people see as derogatory. And the word is gypsy. Now, you might think that there's nothing wrong with using certain words, and what's wrong with words? Words have power. Um, I'm going to talk about things like this because in your gaming world, in your LARPing world, in your social circles, you need to really realize that every word that you say has power over the people around you. And gypsy is another one of those. Gypsy was a misnomer from the very beginning. It came from when the people came up from the steppes, and that's Steppes, which is the colder areas of like the Balkans and Czechoslovakia and Hungary and stuff. And the Romani people came down, and they would meet the non-nomadic, more sedentary cultures. They were mistakenly identified as Egyptians or Egyptians, as they said, and so that's where the word gypsy comes from. But it's often used as a derogatory term. It's not something that the Romani will identify themselves as, and so it's another one of those words that you got to be real cautious about using, because in Europe, especially, uh, they are actively prejudiced against the gypsy culture. Where here in America, we try to at least show lip service to equality. In other parts of the world, they actively treat them like they're less than human, that they're animals, they're dogs, they're uh, uncivilized, and that's not true. The Romani is a very rich culture, and they have been oppressed, especially Romani women. But the Romani, until they are more often more kind of matriarchal, so their women have a little bit more say in their culture. But to us, we look down upon that, and if anything, we negatively reflect our views on them. And that's just one example of hate speech. We're dealing now with the George Floyd incident, where a man was killed in a police action. I'm not going to comment on justifications of anybody there, but I will say somebody was killed, and that man happened to be a man of color. So was this racially motivated or not? Who can actually truly say for sure if it was racially motivated? Nobody can, because we weren't there. Even the man that did it at the time may not have done it consciously from a racial motivation. I don't know. I'm not making excuses for anybody. But what I am saying is that all lives matter. Black lives, uh, redskin, Native Americans, or First Nation people, as they would much rather be called often than Native Americans. Um, the First Nations used a lot in Canada to refer to their own um, Native tribes. But the thing is, you got to remember that what you refer to people as, what words you use, they do inspire people to both hate and love, and either acceptance or avoidance. When you bring a new person into your Dungeons and Dragons group, you have to be cognizant of the fact that that person has feelings and emotions, and there are things that may trigger them, um, and that's just it. Uh, we are supposed to be accepting of other people because other people were not always as accepting of us. We need to turn it around. We as nerds, as gamers, as ambassadors for our culture, should go out and teach other cultures that we interact with and we might be part of this intrinsic lesson of our own, which is not to gatekeep, not to keep people out, not to exclude, but to include others in our life. We're looked at as strange or weird or deviant, or we got pocket protectors and glasses, and we wear frumpy clothing, or we wear weird outfits, and we talk funny. We go to Renaissance fairs and all these things, and these are great activities, and there are stress relief, and sometimes they're the only way that some of us can get through major cultural disasters and life disasters. We've got people dying around us from COVID-19, uh, and we got people ignoring that. The peaceful protesters out there are still out there in large groups, and they have to be cautious of that fact. Yes, we do need to exercise our right to peaceful protest, but at the same time, you still need to make sure that you're safe and you're keeping those that you love safe. People are shaming people online because they're not going to work and they're not risking their elderly or sick or young relatives by going out and exposing themselves to possible infection to the COVID-19 epidemic. Uh, we've got wonderful people in the front line working in essential jobs that have been this whole time. Health professionals, Walmart employees, the cleaning staff, and security staff that still have to go and do their jobs, that are putting themselves out there and often putting themselves at additional risk, and have been for a while, just to make it so that other people could get some of their comforts met, their ailments taken care of. The hospitals have been overloaded at different times, and they were not prepared for all the COVID-19 cases. We've still not tested everybody that has come up with symptoms, and that's why we had misconceptions, like somebody coming back to work at a Supercuts, I believe it was, and exposing other people, and they were worried about it. And although everybody that's come back from the testing of that so far that I've heard has tested negative, that employee was told by a urgent care that she was okay to go back to work. She or he, actually, I'm not sure. I'm not going to even help identify the person, because the person was being anonymous on purpose, and I don't blame them, because right now people have caused major hate because of that. The actual chain had to close down several of their stores because of this. Now, personally, my own personal view is it may be a bit early to open up places like hair care facilities, but that's my personal view, and I'm not in charge of you. The thing about it is, we have to remember that everything we do matters, not just to us, but to those around us. There's all kinds of different people out there. There's all kinds of hate that can be spread, but there's also all kinds of love that can be spread too. Um, I like to liken it to our D&D campaigns, because in Dungeons and Dragons and our gaming world, we deal with lots of different races. Okay, there's the elves, the dwarves, the druid, the half elves, the humans, the dragonborn, the orcs, the tieflings. There's all kinds of races, and some of those work together well, and some of them don't, depending on your game culture. But in actuality, at the table, they need to work together as a group. They're friends joining to do a community thing. They're joining together to play a group sport, a group activity, to go dungeon delving, to go kill mythical monsters that are just placeholders for their frustrations and their anxieties and their stresses. And this is a cathartic way to get over things, so that we don't go out and explode and scream our heads off and rip our hair out and stuff. We need these cathartic things. But if a dwarf and an elf can get together and jokingly compare kill counts at a gaming table, and they're actually of a different genetic race, then why can't people who just have a different amount of certain chemicals in their skin get along? I mean, really, the main difference between a person of color who's, and I'm going to say black here, and a person who is Caucasian, white, is the amount of melanin in their skin. And all that indicates is where their ancestors grew up, what part of the world. It just means that the darker skinned individuals came from hotter climates. The paler skins came from colder climates. That's it. That's the only real difference. Yes, we have some cultural differences. We have a melting pot of culture out there that binds us together and separates us as well. Everybody has a culture, and we're starting to become a real melting pot of culture. You can go in and find foods, for instance, from every culture on the planet in major metropolitan cities now in the United States, at least, and starting to be all over the world. Why can't we meld other cultural things? We have cultural diversity fairs now where we actually share our various cultural differences, but they're not differences as in something we're arguing over. This is cultural differences are more like different ways of doing the same thing, different ways of loving our families, different ways of loving our community, of loving our God, or our spirituality, or no spirituality. You can have different races, creeds, colors, religions, sexual orientations, and you can still be accepted by all. That's the thing that people need to understand. I don't know if I'm getting through. It still only shows as one viewer in my channel. I announced this on Facebook. That's fine. I know that this is not a subject people automatically think I'm dealing with this. It's probably not my place. Uh, I just want people to realize that this is what we are here and what we're about. Um, we need to actually come together as a people and realize we are just people. In D&D terms, we're all humans. I mean, some of us might be from the Sword Coast, and some of us might be from Waterdehavian or Dalesman or Zentrim. But here in this case, some of us are Americans, and some of us are New Zealanders, and some of us are Italians and whatnot. But really, we're just people, and all of us living in America are Americans. Doesn't matter where we came from before. We're now American. We live in America, and that's supposed to be the important concept here, not some other nebulous thing like what color their skin is. I mean, if we really wanted to get all sticky about that, we'd be in there comparing skin colors and even the tiniest differences. There's such a wide variety of skin colors out there, such a wide variety of shapes and sizes of facial features, of bone structure. It's not a difference. It's just a uniqueness. Uniqueness and difference are two different things. A difference is something that you look for to segregate and keep people out. A uniqueness is something you cherish and you celebrate. You should celebrate the uniqueness of individuals around you. This is a important part of our culture, and as nerds, as gamers, as people that have often been the outcasts, I think we should know better than others how to relate that. So if you're going out and you're going onto Facebook and you're shaming people because they're protesting, or you're shaming people because they're not protesting, or you're shaming people for being, for staying home and not going to work, or you're, you know, talking down to people because they are going to work. You shouldn't be doing that. Each person has got to deal with life. Yes, I personally believe, and that this is the thing, I have a right to show my opinion. I believe that we should still be in lockdown. And do I like the lockdown? Not at all. It drives me crazy. I'm such a social individual. It's not even funny. Anybody who knows me knows I do well with other people. I don't do well by myself. I mean, I can do well for a little while. I can read a book. I can sleep. I can play a video game or watch a movie or TV show. But after a while, I need social interaction. I need to get out and move. My doctors want me to be bedridden half the time, and I won't do it because I need people. And yet, I still think that even this tiny little trailer that drives me nuts that I live in is better than a possible grave, which is a much smaller. And even better than that is I don't want to send somebody else to their grave because I catch it and give it to somebody else. I'm immunocompromised. Actually, I should have a lot more worry out here because I am diabetic. I do have kidney failure. I do have COPD. I do have congestive heart failure. I've got all of these conditions that make me at higher risk for um, catching something like COVID, and I'm not out there doing. I can't wear a mask like normal people because I have a phobia that causes me to freak out when I've got my face and mouth covered that way. That's why I'm not a heavy cosplayer, because I can't do a lot of the cosplay anymore. Um, I could do some of it, but some of it I just couldn't do because of my claustrophobic tendencies. I can't handle being any kind of restraints. Um, and that's understandable. But that's me. But even with all that compromise, I'm lucky enough not to generally catch a whole lot of illnesses. I don't get the flu. I don't get pneumonia a lot. I don't get strep throat or ear infections and stuff like it. People around me that are getting all the time. And I mean, you could ask my girlfriend Allison, who most of the people know me, know Allison. She catches everything, it seems like, and I'm sleep right next to her every night, and I don't catch it at all. And I worry about her getting COVID, and I worry about her 14-year-old boy getting it. I worry about my friends, my family, my just my acquaintances getting it. There's people I don't talk to and don't even really necessarily like anymore, but I don't want them in a grave. um, and stuff. So that's what I do, and that's my concern. But they did raise the quarantine. There are people able to go to work and do some uh, quote unquote non-essential things, but we can't gather in big groups. We are not going to be doing major sporting events or concerts or conventions in live for any time soon. We shouldn't be doing those because until we have a actual treatment for COVID, we're we're tempting fate, and that's my opinion. But I'm not going to go out there and I'm not going to shame somebody else because they're working. I'm not going to shame somebody else because they decide that they need to feed their family and it's a little bit more important than staying home. Now, am I going to, and am I guilty of any kind of shaming? Probably. I, I, I did do a diatribe a while back about people walking out of Walmart after the stimulus checks came out with big screen TVs, and it didn't reflect good because, among other things, you were thumbing it in the face of other people, even though you could possibly. Yeah, I don't know. Those people could have been people that had been working and just got their tax return and used their tax return to get the big screen TV, which is what they were planning to do in the first place. You know, uh, but the thing is, to do it right now in front of a lot of people that are going wanting, to me, was a bit of a slap in the face. I do think that people need to realize that that's what the stimulus checks are not meant for. They're not meant for buying big screen TVs. They're meant for paying your bills and keeping up with things. But still, it's not my business to tell you how to run your business. And so I do apologize if that caused any kind of strife with people. I mean, my opinion doesn't really matter to most of you because, I mean, I'm not in charge of you, like I said. But we have to realize the hate, the negativity, the exclusionism, the ostracism of people is not good. The use of words that are hurtful to others, even though we may not see them necessarily as hurtful, are hurtful. For instance, like I said, the one thing that brought things together to me today, the talk about gypsy. The term gypsy is a negative derogatory term. If you tell a Romani they're a gypsy, they may act okay, but they're really inside, they have been insulted. When you call somebody and I'm going to use these are negative terms, so don't think that these are ones I use all the time, but I'm going to use these words. If you call somebody retarded, if you call somebody a uh, a spick or a chink or all these different negative derogatory terms, you are in effect perpetuating this whole racist, sexist, socially exclusionary society. I have friends of all of these different varieties. I've got friends of the in the LGBTQ community. Um, my girlfriend's daughter is married to her wife. She is they're openly gay. I've got friends that have gone through gender reassignment surgery. I've got friends who just choose to um, go by another gender now, and it's I'm not saying it's a choice, as in they are who they think they are. I'm saying it's simply in the choices that they are choosing now to accept it. I'm not saying that it's an easy choice because the world tries to make it a really hard choice. People like to look down on people for it. But some of my best friends are in the Pride community, and really, some of my absolute best friends. And let's see here. Let's see. This is if you look on my screen now, you'll see a a flag. This is love has no gender, and that's absolutely correct. It's the rainbow. The reason they use the rainbow as their symbol is because every color is related to the color next to it in line. They are just spectrums and light of light, but it shows that one easily blends to the other and to the other and to the other. In a true rainbow, this is not a fully blended rainbow, but in a true rainbow, you would see that it's just really one spectrum of light that's just broken up into different unique little snowflakes of of diversity. Diversity is the key to our life. We do not need to have riots. We do not need to have hate. I mean, we have peaceful protests here. These people, the picture I'm showing on the screen now is a peaceful protest. They have signs. They're a little bit close together for my taste, considering, and some of them are not wearing masks and some are. But they are peacefully protesting. They're not going out and rioting and looting. People who use this as an excuse to loot and riot are people who are just wanting to commit a crime and using the most convenient excuse to do it. Because, as I said at the very beginning, two wrongs do not make a right. It is not okay to hurt somebody else because you were hurt, especially if they're not the person that hurt you. And that's just it. They're not, you weren't even necessarily the person hurt. A lot of people here are acting up because George Floyd, I believe is the man's name, was hurt. You as an individual was not hurt. George Floyd was hurt. And I don't think you should use George Floyd's being hurt as an excuse to break into somebody's house and steal their stuff. Especially as that could be a family with kids, and all they do is try to get by, and they're barely getting by sometimes, you know. But it wouldn't matter if they were rich. You still couldn't use it as an excuse to go in and steal their stuff. Um, I talk about equality. We're all equal. I mean, some aren't more equal than others, even though some of the people on top try to think they are. Everybody should be someone that matters. This is a melting pot where we all come together and interlock our hands and work as a community. This symbol here where you see everybody's hand being held by the wrist by one and then holding onto the wrist of the next person. This is important because it is not only does it show unity, but it shows what you can do with that kind of unity. Because this is a kind of a carry too that can carry a lot more weight. They've used this kind of a grip before to lift people who are harder to lift out of emergency situations and stuff, because each of those hands is adding their strength and it's multiplying the ability of the total to do the job. That's what people coming together do. We multiply by our love and by our community. We multiply our effect on life. And so those are the things I think are important that people understand and realize. Now it still only looks like I've got just one viewer in the channel, and if that's actually true, I mean, I'm never sure on the accuracy of that, but if that's true, that's unfortunate. But it does, it's still fine. I'm okay with that if that's how it's going to be. Hopefully, I will get this over to YouTube so people can see this. I'm not more important than anybody else in this. I know that I'm probably stepping out on a limb here, and I might get some backlash from this. I just want to see people get along. I mean, I know it's stereotypical to say, can't we all just get along? But it's the truth. We can all get along. We do not need to be in this spiral of hate that we've caused, a spiral of unacceptance. Actively work to make more people welcome. Take words like gypsy out of your day-to-day language. If you use it in a historical context, that's one thing. I mean, I still believe in using words in a historical context. I still believe in being accurate when you're accurately quoting somebody. I still believe in that, but you need to make sure that the belief behind those quotes is not yours, but that you are quoting something. You're actually, in this case, doing a historical reenact. Like, for instance, if you use something like a term like gypsy in Dungeons and Dragons, you need to make sure that you're not referring to the Romani traveling people, but that you're talking about a behavioral type, and you still need to be clear about it. But it's probably best just to pull that word out of your vocabulary. It's hard to do. I mean, I have to readjust my thinking when a friend of mine uh, goes through gender reassignment, and I have to start thinking of them as him or her when I used to think of them the other way around, or try to remember to use them or they. But I don't always remember that because it is beaten into me. It is socially programmed into me to do that. So we're all going to make slip ups. We're all going to make mistakes. My mom was one of the nicest people in the world. She had black friends and Asian friends and all that, but she was racist. And it was not 100% her fault because she was raised to be racist. That's the thing. We need to raise our next generation not to be racist, not to be sexist, not to be exclusionary. What are we teaching our children when we are perpetuating hate? We're teaching them to perpetuate hate. That's the thing. That's why I love, like, for instance, video games where you get to play, like in a simulated world, and the hair colors and skin colors can be all these oddball colors, and you can be walking around as a panda or as a fairy or as a dragon or whatever in these simulated worlds, and you're doing SimCity, and you're still making a character of all different shapes and sizes and stuff, and everybody's accepting of you and nobody's looking down on you, because that's what the world is. It's a big hodgepodge of everybody that can possibly be, and we need to come together, and we need to actually realize that these are negative things, that hate is wrong, that we should stamp out hate. We've got the classic Buster symbol with hate behind it. He's used classically using the Ghostbuster, but it's used all over, and it's always has been the stamp out symbol. And hate should be clearly behind that symbol at all times. We don't need to hate people. Hate is one of the strongest negative emotions out there. It is detrimental. It is it's self-injuring. It hurts you even more than it hurts other people sometimes. It causes stresses in your body. It causes negative reactions, makes you get sick more often. Hate and negativity can cause you to get ulcers, and it can cause you to get aneurysms, and it can cause increased anxiety. The more you hate, the more your body will feel that negativity and push it out into your system and perpetuate the cycle. So let's try not to hate. Um, let's see here. We don't need this rioting, looting. Police should not have to be in riot gears in our own cities, in our own country. It's bad enough that we have to go to other countries and intervene, and sometimes I think we probably do that when we shouldn't. I'm not going to say for sure, but we do need to make sure that here we feel safe in our own country, and that means that we don't need our police to be in riot gear. They're escorting refugees, and they're fighting off looters and stuff, and that is not what we need to be seen in our streets. We need to be seen more of the, like I said, the races coming together, the people come together. We are just one race. We're not separate races. We're separate ethnicities. We have separate backgrounds. I mean, we are not even a different race. We're completely uh, genetically compatible. Scientifically speaking, there's really not much difference between us. We breed true. You can a black person and a white person gets together, and their offspring can have babies. That there are many mulatto couples out there, and I know I'm trying not to use that term too, because a friend of mine indicated to them that was also negative, and then again I slip up. I apologize again. I shouldn't apologize all the time, but in this case, I think we do owe the world an apology sometimes for some of the misconceptions that we were raised towards. Um, it is in our background. It is in our rearing. It is a part of nurture, not nature. Although it is the human nature to be warlike. It is human nature to be exclusionary. Unfortunately, we are a herd species, and the herd species doesn't let anybody else into the herd because they see them as a threat. Uh, but we do like community because we are a herd species as well. And I know Some people might not even like to hear humans talked about in animalistic terms, but guess what? We are an animal just like anybody else, and so there's certain things that for us to become civilized we have to overcome some of our animalistic instincts and some of our animalistic programming that's genetically deep, and um, we need to embrace other parts of our culture, like protect our young and protect our elderly and protect our society. Those are things that we need to embrace. So I'm going to get off of my diatribe. It doesn't look like anybody other than one person ever came into the channel. That's fine. I completely understand. It's not like it was a mandate, but I wanted to express this. Hate, negativity should be excluded from your game. I did promise Marissa, the person that brought to me the gypsy comment, that I would help get it out to the community that words like this do hurt. So remember them. Remember to before you make that lewd sexual comment at a table that somebody might not be comfortable at your table. Before you make that racist comment, remember somebody might be uncomfortable at your table. In fact, don't make the racist comment. It's much easier if you just don't do it. Now, I can understand a group of friends getting together and they have their normal slapstick jokes. They have in jokes. They've built it. But remember, when there's an outsider that has not been in the group, especially you brought in a new person, they may not have the same bonds of understanding that you as a group have. And so, good natured ribbing that they see between you and somebody else, they may not get. It's kind of like that buddy cop type of thing you see on TV where the white cop and the black cop will make fun of each other's races, but they really know that they love each other and they're good buddies and partners. But anybody that comes into their partnership doesn't get that, and when they try to crack the jokes and stuff, it falls completely off, and it even makes them uncomfortable. That's the thing here. When you're bringing new people into your group, you got to realize that. You also have to make sure that you keep a mind on the people that have been in your group, because sometimes they just don't speak up because they don't want to make waves. They don't want to be confrontational. They don't want to be the one that makes the group fall apart. They like to be accepted as any little bit that they've been accepted, and they are afraid that if they speak up that they won't be, or that they'll ruin something and they'll be blamed for it. And so be cognizant of the people around you and their feelings. That's all I'm saying. I mean, that's really all I'm saying. I'm going to go ahead and log out of this now. I know I probably wasted my time even doing this, but I had to get this off my chest, and I didn't feel like typing it out just to have Facebook lose it or break it or whatever, because I've retyped things like this over and over and over and over again, only to have Facebook screw it up and me have to redo it. So I wanted to come on here, use my channel for something other than just teaching role-playing games, maybe teach some acceptance. Um, I'm going to log out of here. Whoever it is that is listening, my one viewer, I do appreciate you being there. It's always nice to have somebody say hello so I know that you're there. I'm not going to ask anybody to like or follow on this particular broadcast. But if you do want to do something good for people, there's I'm trying to activate a bot command, and it doesn't seem to be working. I don't know if my bot is working right now or not. But you can go down below in my underneath my broadcast, and you'll see a link if you want to donate to Extra Life. They do help with the Children's Miracle Network. Or you can search me, Gamer Seuss, or Clyde Star on the Extra Life website if you want to go and give something to a good cause instead of all this hate and everything. Give to the Children's Miracle Network. All funds do go to your local Children's Miracle Network recipients. It's not going to any national slush fund. So it's basically Extra Life as a charity, specifically where gamers and other nerdy types come together to game and stuff to raise money for these kids that are going through long-term and uh, chronic terminal illnesses such as cancer, and this helps them get treatment and care and do things in the other things like the Make-A-Wish system and stuff. So please give if you can, and try to forget the negativity that I brought up today. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and log off before I lose it again. Bye.